I'm very excited to be speaking in front of all of you. I've done this a few times before, and I'm also excited to say we already have 212 people listening in. So I'm hoping that this will be beneficial for all of you. First of all, I own Premier Creative. It's actually January was the start of our 28th year. At the bottom of this slide, you'll see my email address if you want to take a screen capture or copy that, my phone number as well. At the end of the presentation, we'll also put that information up as well, so you'll know how to reach me. Just real quickly, like I said, we have been in business now for 28 years. We started as a traditional agency. We have a lot of different skill sets in-house, whether it's search engine optimization, email automation, Google pay-per-click, influencer marketing. We do Amazon marketing. So there's a lot of skill sets here if you're interested or so inclined. Let's talk about why you came, though, to today's talk. And that is what the problem is, right? Because most of you didn't just randomly decide to do a blog. There's a specific reason. And those factors range for different websites. We have clients that are both service clients as well as e-commerce. So for a lot of you, the visitor bounce rate is too high, meaning that people come look at one page and leave. The time on site's low. A lot of sites have, maybe 30, 50 seconds, or even a minute or so. A good website's going to really be at like 4+ minutes or higher. And then a lot of your visitors are not engaged. In e-commerce, 99% of most visitors don't transact. And in service-based businesses, you see an even lower percentage because obviously there's no transaction process. So you as the marketer, whether you're the owner of your business or whether you are in charge of the marketing group at your business, you're constantly under pressure, right? Whether you realize it or not. And that pressure is that you need to increase the number of quality leads that you get. You definitely need to increase your revenues. And at the end of the day, you have to deliver results, right? Because that's really the measure of marketing. And we know that because when businesses decide to lay off staff, who do they always pick on? They pick on marketing. Not sure why, because really marketing is what's driving the process. But that's one of the challenges that we have as marketers. So what we're going to do here today is I'm going to give you a win. You need a win that you can take back to management and say, or if you are management, to the team and say, hey, we need to do something different. When we look left, when we look back, that's not really working. We need to look forward. We need to look right. Okay. And so here's what we're going to do is we're going to help you get a win. So first of all, why blog? Okay. So there's a number of reasons, and not all of these are quite obvious, right? So first of all, we need to drive traffic to your website. And that's where SEO comes in, right? Because your blogs, just like your web pages, can rank in Google or in DuckDuck or Bing, Yahoo, or any of the 100 other plus search engines. 2, it's a way to enhance your social network engagement, right? Or readership, right? So you have information that's relevant and compelling. Moreover, and this is a big one, is you can establish yourself as a thought leader in your marketplace. And I don't care if you make pizzas or if you sell inexpensive jewelry or if your business sells, used high-end luxury cars, right? Here's a way that you can establish your credibility, whether you are a small business, mid-size, or you're a Fortune 100. Also important with backlinks, because they are with blogs, because they are indexed differently, right, from your website, you can create and add authoritative, quality, keyword-guided backlinks. So you actually have the ability to control the keywords that you're targeting through your blog, because again, Google and search engines see blog content different from website. So this is a real value add that you should consider. Boosting credibility with customers, right? If I come to your website, I don't know your brand, I don't know your company, I'm not even familiar with what you're offering, right? I'm still in the informational learning stage. Right here, this is a way you can connect, right? Because what do people do when they come to your website? They're reading, they're trying to learn, they're trying to become better informed. The more you can educate them in an objective informational process or capacity, the more they connect with you, right? Because we don't have a salesman online. We don't have someone talking to the person, right? They're reading and digesting and making all sorts of assumptions. So powerful in that we're allowed to essentially control that dialogue, but in a very objective way. A blog also becomes, depending on how advanced your blog is and how detailed and how much depth there is to it, it becomes essentially an FAQ section where you can educate and upsell prospects, right? You know what the top 5 issues are when you're trying to sell someone. Maybe you're in marketing, so you don't actually do the selling, but for the salesperson, if you go to those people in your company and say, you know, what are the obstacles? They're going to be able to rattle off real quickly. Well, they're going to ask me about, you know, why does it cost this much? You know, what happens if it breaks down? If I have a problem, who am I going to call? You know, how much do I get for, you know, my spend? Whatever those issues are, those are sort of the challenges. And so here's a blog can be used to sort of supersede that and make educational content where you can better inform your prospective visitors. And then lastly, for those of you who do email marketing, one of the challenges or struggle is you need content, right? You know, why read the newsletter or why respond to the email, right? If you're pushing a product and service, why not provide additional information that's very readily available that they have more flexibility. They can learn and choose about something else. I apologize, the system has been changed. So if you have questions, I won't necessarily know that you have questions unless Kip jumps in. So from here, let's move on to the next slide. So what to blog about? Okay, there's a lot of options here. And I think that for many of you, that's probably the challenge is, you know, where do I start? My suggestion would be to you is to sort of break it down and think big picture. Try not to get too technical in your blogs and too granular, because when you're starting your blog, right, you need to build momentum. You need to establish credibility. You need to talk about the bigger issues. For those of you who already have a blog now, and let's say you've written 200 blogs to date, and now you're sort of, well, I'm tapped out of ideas. Well, the web has a wealth of ideas. You can look at industry topics, right, within your industry specific. You can look at user problem related topics, problems that the consumer may have or the B2B may have, and talk about those issues. You could talk about products or services that you offer, right? So think of them as revenue streams, right? Within your navigation structure of your website, you know, you probably have, and everyone's different, but you probably have 4 or 5, maybe 6 tabs. Within each of those tabs, that's a category that you could talk about. And then with each of those pages, that is a product or service that you might be able to talk about. How-to guides, Google loves how-to guides. Clients love how-to guides. Prospective love how-to guides, because here's where they feel like you're educating and teaching them, and you're informing them, and you're offering it essentially for free, right? You have no reason not to disclose that information because you want to educate them. You want an informed customer or consumer. Infographics and videos, you see lots of them that are put out. You can take a video that's been produced and put it in your blog and then comment about it, write about it. Like, this is a great blog, video. I really like some of these 3 main things they don't about a lot of readership or viewership on those blogs. Why not leverage those blogs and put your spin on it, whether it's your own videos or your competitors? And then top 10 lists. That's really great. We do a lot of those when we're doing recaps at the end of the year. So you could do the top 10 blogs of the year, the top 10 problems of the year, the top 10 most asked questions. You know, it doesn't even have to be top 10. You could do also top 5. You could do top 3. You really have the freedom to do what you want. I'm talking fast and furious because I have a limited amount of time. So I apologize if I'm ripping through this. If I am, again, you have my details, or you can find our details online and reach out to us. So where do we gather ideas for blogs? Well, one great one is just look in your analytics and look at what we call all pages, okay? Based on who is looking at your pages, or not even who, where the most volume of looks are, right? So if you have, besides your homepage, right, which is you're probably going to have the most views, most likely on your homepage, the page 2, page 3, page 4, whatever those pages are, if people are looking at those pages, there's a reason why, right? So what is the reason why? Like, what are you talking about on that page? What are you sharing? What are the issues or the concerns? So this is a great way to create a blog. And then, of course, when we go back to what we talked about backlinking earlier, you can then connect to that landing page or that page of your website through the blog, okay? We talked about FAQs, right? That's another good area for you to come up with blog ideas. If you don't have an FAQ on your website, I'd strongly recommend that you have it, because people do have a frequently asked question, and it's nice if they can quickly get to it. Doesn't have to. That's a great play. We talked about the top 10 sales questions already. Most active reviewed blogs that even within, you may write a blog one time, you may need to go deeper. Sometimes there's part 1, there's part 2, part 3. Or you need to take a blog that's made very high level and break down each of the components within that blog. And then you can reverse links. So the main blog can say, to read more about this in greater detail, go to this specific blog, or vice versa. At one of these specific blogs, you could say, to learn more about this topic, and point back to the main blog or to subsequent related blogs. Competitors. Look, I'm big on best practices, but don't reinvent the wheel. It's not necessary. The wheel was invented a long time ago, so leverage somebody else's wheel. Go and see what your competitors are talking about. See what they're writing about. If they have a lot of views, if that blog ranks really well, or there's a lot of comments, or if you do a search and it ranks very high, then there's a good reason, and there's nothing wrong with taking your competitors' topics and putting your own spin on it, because what you're going to do is write a better blog anyway than your competitor. Industry experts, there's a lot of people who are blogging out there. There are a lot of people who are commenting. There's stuff in the press, there's Reddit, there's social media, it's everywhere. Find an expert and cite them. Talk about what they're speaking about, and put your own twist and feedback on them. Moving on. So do the research, okay? Google Trends is a great place to start. Google Trends, you can just enter in a specific keyword and find what you find, right? I mean, you all know how to use search engines, right? You put in one keyword, 2, 3, 5, you write a whole sentence. Every time you do something, you're going to get different answers. So analyze what other people are doing and see what they're talking about, or what maybe they're not talking about. Browse social media, specifically your own social media. Okay, if you're a B2B, that might be like on your LinkedIn platforms. But if you're a consumer-based business, then it might specifically be, your Facebook or your Twitter or your Instagram. And of course, you can look at social media as well. Joining relevant groups with interesting topics is a great way. Facebook has a lot of groups. There's different private Twitter groups, LinkedIn. I mean, there's all these, there's meetups, there's all these different ways that you can go and join other like-minded people and hear what they're talking about, hear what their challenges are to give you ideas. Google Analytics, you can also look in Google Analytics. You could do what people are searching for. You could see what keywords they're using. Those are all good ideas. We talked about Google Trends, obviously the Google Keywords research tool. Most of the social medias have what's trending or what's hot. You can look and see what's interesting. And Google also suggests topics for you, which leads me to what's called the PAA. People also ask. Now, people also ask is basically Google's focus on what's called intent, right? So when people use search engines, most people tend not to be very granular in their search. for someone like myself who's been involved in search for so long, it would be very rare that I would ever put in like 2 or 3 words for a search. Maybe if I'm looking for a specific brand, but I'm usually going to have 4, 5, 6 keywords, because I'm going to try and give Google as much information so that I can get very specific results. Time is money. I don't want to waste a lot of time. So people also ask, is Google's way of telling you what they believe based on reams and reams of data search that they have of what the consumer actually meant, or the business person. So for example, this example here, the Custom Pools Pro, I think what I typed in was something broad like custom pool service provider or something like that, or custom pool builder, right? Yeah, it was custom pool builder. Thanks. Answer my own question. So when you go into Google and you type that in, somewhere on the SERP, the search engine result page, you're going to see after some of the listings, it could be after the 2nd or 3rd, it could be after the 8th, something called people also ask. And so while my keyword search was custom pool builders, this is really right here what people's intent were or was when they did that search. How much does it cost to build a custom pool? That's really what they wanted to know, even though they typed custom pool builder. Or how much money do pool builders make? I don't think that's probably what they wanted, but maybe. Is it illegal to build your own pool for the DIY person? What is the cheapest way to build a swimming pool? So all of these questions, right? This is the intent behind the original search of custom pool builder. And so these are great topics for you to blog about. Really good topics, because if this is their intent, when they type in something broad, you can back into it. You can back right into their concern or their issue, and you've got the answer. So when they come to your website, boom, you're already connecting really nicely with the person. We talked about it, how-to guides like how to, what is, best of, what are the benefits of. I mean, what, who, what, when, where, why, right? Think of it that way. All of how-to guides are informational searches. Usually they are not people that are ready to transact, right? The problem that you see with e-commerce is all these great Shopify websites have no information, right? They're basically like CVS stores with lots of aisles, and you come and then you manage through the aisles and you find what you want and you purchase. But for someone who doesn't know your brand, or someone who's in the informational stage where they're trying to educate and learn and understand, not having a blog is a problem, right? So how-to guides are a wonderful way to sort of gently upsell your prospects, but to build a rapport, build trust, build confidence, right? Who wants to hire an SEO agency where they don't tell you anything and they don't send you a report, right? Like that just doesn't work. So the more you can explain and educate and connect with that consumer or B2B person, the better chance you have to sell to them. So how-to guides are great ideas for blogs. Developing a blog outline. We have clients that vary. We have some clients that we ghost blog for them, like we write 15 blogs a month. Some clients we do 10 a month, most do 4 a month, right? Like 1 a week. So there's like 50 a year. I would say a few clients, maybe 2 times a month. One time a month really sort of isn't worth it, right? Like you're not doing enough to move the dial, in my opinion. So to develop a blog outline, we've given you lots of ideas on the first 8 slides of what you could do. And here's some examples staying in that pool concept to give you an idea, excuse me, of what some good ideas are for blogging. So things to consider: how long, how to remove, how to add, what you need to know, the best, preferred, when, common reasons, right? Like all of these are very interchangeable, right? I mean, just take the word swim pool out and put in Botox injections, right? Or take out the word, how to repair cracks in pool stairs, and change that how to repair cracks in, I don't know. Now I'm on the spot. How to repair cracks in my sewer pipes? I don't know. But you get the idea, right? I mean, it's specific for each and every person's specific industry. So what I like to do is I like to come up with 6 to 12 categories. And then within each of those categories, I like to have 4 to 6 different idea topics, right? So that way, you ideally are going to have somewhere in the neighborhood on the low end, maybe like 25, 30 blogs. And then on the high end, you could have as many as 70. And then that way, what you could do is once you have that long list, you can then sit down with your team or whoever the person is that's the decision maker, if it's not you, and say, okay, similar, keep, good. And you can sort of narrow it down to get to the right number of blogs that you want. And now you have ideas. The great thing too is any that you don't do in year 1, year 2, you already start that work. What is the blog structure? So the most important thing in the blog has to be your intro or your hook. And I've given you an example of here for something like how to plan a safe wedding during COVID. This is going to be your hook sentence or paragraph right here. Then you're going to have 2 informational paragraphs typically, right? Like here's a virtual wedding, celebrating weddings safely in person. Both of these ideas, of course, come from PAA that we talked about. People also asked. Then you're going to have some informational paragraphs here. We like to use, we mentioned bullet points. Bullet points are really great, like you sort of spell it out very cleanly. We always want to have in our footer like a nice phone number down here. We want to have a strong call to action, right? We don't do that anywhere in the beginning because we're not selling, right? We're trying to educate and be objective. But at the very end, when we get to the last part of the paragraph, that's where we're going to want to essentially have that call to action. Some people also like to use a pop-up, right? So if the blog's very long, say the blog will take, I don't know, 2 minutes to read, you can have a pop-up after 60 seconds that has a call to action. Call to action might be if you're interested in reading other blogs, if you're interested in speaking with someone, if you'd like to join our newsletter. So don't just keep the blog as, you can leverage the blog to sort of grow your relationships with customers. I didn't mention it, but recommendations are also good in here. You can't recommend your own product or your own brand, but you can make a recommendation that's educational. Remember, blogs are supposed to be objective. They're supposed to be educational and informative. Do not reference your company when you're writing or talking about the blog. Only at the very end is it okay to then do that, all right? Especially if you want your blogs to be indexed and put in, blog directories and other people to pick them up. Headers are very important. You always want to have an H1, and then you're going to want to have H2s. Okay, this is important for Google. What makes a good header? A good header is what you might see in the New York Times, for example, right? It's 4 to 7 words. It might have a geography if your business is geographically based, and you're definitely going to want to probably have some sort of keywords or related keywords that are relevant to the blog that you're talking about. And so just make sure that, for your SEO purposes, that you do have headers in here. Some of the blog visual elements that you're going to want that are going to be in the sidebar of your blog when you build the blog, right? We pretty much always use WordPress. It's, I think, 35% of all websites are now WordPress. It aligns really well with Google and search engines. So you definitely want a search bar, right? So that if someone has a topic and they read on your blog and they want to go a little bit deeper, definitely have the ability for them to search all of your blogs. Recent posts is also nice, right? You want them to see what you've recently been talking about, so that after they finish the first one, maybe they'll jump to those other ones. Categories is nice, right? Make sure you categorize your blogs, because some people might, in this instance, want to read about maybe they're interested in Botox, or maybe they're interested in acne, or maybe they have rosacea. I don't know, but you want to have categories. And then archives, if people want to go back. So the main elements you need to have in addition for your actual blog is you ideally want to have a date, and you want to have an author. And of course, you're definitely going to want to have images. Blog lengths. Now, first, let me say that this graph is not really true, okay? Just because you write a very long blog does not mean that you will rank on page 1 and you will rank number 1. You have to do SEO, okay? You have to be building backlinks to make that happen. But what I can tell you is that Google gives a lot more credit and authority and value to longer format blogs, right? Back in the day, certain countries not to be named had link farms where content was recycled and people gave you 1,000 backlinks for $200, which is essentially worthless, and you actually got penalized. But essentially, you know, content is king, right? The better the quality of your content, the more authoritative, the more educational, informational, the better chance you have for that blog to rank, the greater chance for people to read and stay better connected on the website. So I would say don't write a blog that's less than 500 words. If you have the time, I would say 700 to 1,000 would be ideal, right? And it takes a while. It's not a simple process. And then beast mode, for those of you who just like, you know, really stream of conscious and you're really passionate. I mean, a 2,000 word blog is amazing, right? There's a lot of education and information in there, and you could build a tremendous amount of connectivity with people who are reading. Passive versus action verbs. I know you didn't ask me to be your English teacher, but a lot of blogs that we read are very boring. Do not use the verb is or are. Those are passive verbs. When you write, think of using action verbs or active verbs. Just like when you write your resume, you would never say something that's passive. You always usually have some sort of active verb like, you know, jumped, increased, expanded, grew, started, whatever those keywords are. Make sure that your blog has an active voice. Moreover, make sure that the receiver of the action is not the subject, but rather flip it, right? So, and again, I know we're not doing E.B. Strunk's writing, but this is very important and it is a problem. So make sure that you're using active verbs. I'm going to close. We're closing in on my time constraints. So we only have a few more slides, and I appreciate that actually our viewership has increased from when we first started at 212. We're now I think over 250. So thank you. Copy editing, very important. Never post your blog and copy edit your own work. Get somebody else to read that. Even if that means you have to hire someone, or even if it means you ask someone who's not in your marketing team or who doesn't have expertise in the topic, it's always good to have somebody else look at the document. Always spell check. I do see typos in blogs, even in my own staff, right? I always remind them. Grammarly is a great tool. It helps get rid of passive voice. Make sure that you are, I feel like I have to sneeze, but I'm not going to, sorry. Excuse me. Make sure, again, your blog is objective, not subjective. Don't be touting your business in your blog. Do not do that. As a general rule of thumb, try not to have more 3 is's or 3 r's. If you write 500 words, you'd be surprised if you just search for is, how many times you might see it. Avoid personal pronouns. Never use the word it. Try and be very specific. Don't mix perspective. A lot of times you start out talking about they, right, or the third person, and then you say you, and then before you know it, you're talking about we or us. Make sure you stay within the same perspective, because again, it's sort of like personal pronouns. You can really confuse the reader. Remember, you're writing something that should be very clear. You want the reader to walk away with a very specific understanding of what that topic is. Read out loud. This is one we all of our interns we do, and even my own staff, when they give me something, I'm like, do me a favor. I read what you wrote before I send you my comments. Just read it out loud. When you read something out loud, you can hear if it sounds awkward, right? You can't hear that when you're writing it. It's just not possible. But when you read what you've written out loud, you will hear if something is passive voice, if something is boring, if something is nonsensical. So definitely read out loud? And then lastly, would you read past the first sentence? That I'm a really annoying person about that. When people give me blogs to read, and I'll be like, I'm not reading this. This first sentence or first paragraph is so boring. Like, my time is valuable. Make sure, we talked about it earlier, the hook. Make sure that your intro has a reason that they're going to want to keep learning and keep reading. I don't know if any of you know copy editing. I'm dating myself, but I still use these tactics when I'm marking up people's copies. So I thought I'd just give it to you. Timing and scheduling, essentially different reasons to blog, right? So seasonal, business event related, holidays, weekly. Don't just write blogs that are randomized. In other words, if you're coming up on an event, write about that event. Plan for it. Be thoughtful about a specific challenge. If Amazon Prime Day is coming up, don't write about it in December. Write about it in July. Although this year was in October. Lastly, just to keep on schedule, although Kip hasn't given me the hook, where to promote your blog. Social media is great. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Google My Business, Reddit, LinkedIn, company newsletters. There's so many different places that you could do. So again, my name is JJ Abbott. I own Premier Creative. Our phone number is down at the bottom, my email address as well. I appreciate so many of you taking the time to listen and to hear me. I hope that it was educational and informative. And good luck the rest of the days at this conference.
This is great. And we got a lot of questions. I think there are a lot of people who are worried about running a blog and stuff. So I've been copying some of them down so I don't have to scroll back. And I'm going to read off some of those to you here. First one came in from Hannah. And she's asking, do you recommend allowing comments on blog posts? And this was actually seconded by a few of our viewers. So comments.
So Hannah, great question. The answer is no, never, not possible. Okay, for a few reasons. One is it's the easiest way to get hacked. Okay, and you don't want to get hacked, right? That's an old bot system tracker. So don't do that. Second of all, I don't allow comments because then you get like those inappropriate posts, whether it's about like Cialis, marijuana, CBD, third-party platforms where they're promoting themselves and trying to pull traffic. So don't do it for that reason. Third of all, you might get a comment that you don't want, right? It's your blog, you're controlling it. Don't allow people to post information that you don't want to be on there. So no, if you want to post your blog on like Reddit or some other platform where people can then post comments, that's fine. But you're in control of your blog. You're the authority and the expert. And I do not allow it for all three of those reasons. The first being, the minute you disable comments, it's much harder for a hacker to get in to WordPress. Sorry.
Nice. Comment came in about asking about the session. So the entire thing is recorded, so including this Q&A at the end. So if that's what you were asking, yes, all that was included. As far as the comments, you'll be able to come back and look at that on the platform.
Shout out Justin. Man, that was all great stuff. Really appreciate it. Thank you, brother. Appreciate the comment.
Here's one from Cindy, and this was seconded by a few people as well. So let's get to this one. Can you talk about the pros and cons of allowing comments on blogs? We already did that. Forget that. Scratch it. Alex, thoughts on embedding audio transcriptions of content on each post? That one was asked by others as well. Audio transcriptions.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, podcasts we didn't talk about podcasts, shame on me, but think of a podcast as a YouTube video. It's the same, right? You can get value and benefit. And some people, if they're on their mobile device or they're driving or something, they can't read something, but if you have an audio transcript, that's definitely great. Or you could post the audio transcript as the main part and then comment or write specifically about that.
Somebody was asking to get your info back up. So I'm going to throw it back up on the screen real quick here.
Oh, okay.
So we'll leave that there. I believe you can still see both of us. Let's get to another question here. This one from Amanda. What would you say are the top 3 analytic metrics that define a successful blog post? And where do you want those numbers to be? Is there a benchmark?
So obviously, it depends on each and every business, right? So the number, if you go into your Google Analytics, I think the measure of success would be, first of all, how many views did your blog get in total, right? All of your blogs. That would be the measure most important. If you're driving 5,000 visitors, that's better than 500. The second is probably how many people go beyond one blog, right? It's hard to get people to go to a second blog. So anything like above 1.4, 1.5 would be great, right? Because if I'm reading the blog, I'm reading something specific. The next is time on site. The more time they spend on your site reading, the better. Some blogs, if they're really long, right, having people staying on your site is really the objective of your blog. So I would say that's probably the three most major important metrics. And then 4, if you do have goals tied to those, or if you have like pop-ups, then obviously if people are filling out the pop-ups, that would be pretty important too.
Yeah, good. From Annie, what about the continue reading buttons that we're seeing so much of now? Any thoughts on that trend? Is that a good practice to follow or not?
The continue reading button. Can Annie be a little more specific?
Annie, go ahead and post in the chat if you want to be more specific on that one, and we'll see if we can get to that. Princess is asking, what quick tips do you have on SEO and backlinking?
Well, that's a longer topic for another time. If you want, you could reach out to me about that. But obviously, SEO is a completely different beast all into of itself, to be honest. I don't think I could do justice to that in this time.
All right, but here's one that I think this is going to be right up your alley because you run an agency. This is from Kenneth. He said, how do you work with difficult clients who always want to rewrite your content?
Oh, Ken, I feel your pain. Plastic surgeon, neurosurgeon, tough critics, very tough critics. I think you just have to accept that some clients are difficult, and it's not easy. I think having a good outline would be helpful. Like, I don't know your specific relationship, but if you develop an outline like of topics you're going to write about, then maybe come up with like, okay, here are the 4 or 5 main points that we're going to emphasize within the blog. Get the client to then sign off on that, okay? And then if it's copy editing, well, that's to be expected. Like, the client is ultimately the master on this topic. If you're an agency, so it's their responsibility to vet and approve the content that you're not that is consistent with their brand and voicing. But I think that difficult clients persist. And then that's a struggle. I feel your pain. I know that pain. I've been there. I think that sometimes you having a meeting of the minds and asking them to say specifically, like, okay, here's 5 blogs we wrote. Can you tell me specifically what's wrong with each of these 5? Like, I want to do a better job, but I still don't feel like I have enough clues to understand what your issue is. So I think, the more you dialogue, hopefully you'll get to a better answer with the client. But there are difficult clients, and there's nothing you could do about that, unfortunately.
You ended that correctly. Some more information on this. Read more. It sounds like it might be a limitation of either the blog or the site or the way it was set up, but apparently it comes up as read more button truncates the text.
Yeah, read more is great. So usually on the main blog page, what you're going to have is you're going to have a main blog or the most recent blog. You're going to have a short description, and then at the end it should say like read more with a hyperlink for them to click. And then underneath the main blog or the most recent blog, then you might have like, 5 or 6 most recent blogs, and each one of those will say read more. That's completely acceptable. And for me as a user, it's called chunking, and it's a better experience because you may list 5 blogs and I'm only interested in one of those 5. Or I don't want to be forced to have to read through 4 blogs till I get to the 5th blog on your main page. So definitely read more, definitely good.
And another question came in, and we've received this question often in other sessions that we've done in past digital summits. But a lot of people are wondering, what do you think about older blog content that maybe isn't receiving a lot of traffic? Should you delete it or keep it there? What's your opinion on that?
So, what older? that we've written blogs 10 years ago, some of those blogs like rank extremely high. They have a huge amount of backlinks that either we've built to those blogs or screen scrape, or they link to our blog and put it on their own content, and then they write about it. So you have to know the value of each blog before you delete it. But I will say that most blogs that are probably like pre-2015, they don't have a tremendous lot of value unless you've been doing SEO for that long, in which case what you could do is remove it, recycle it, rewrite it, and repost it now, which is pretty quick because it's probably still relevant, you know? So, or one thing that we do is we'll take old blogs, mash them together, and make longer blogs. So we'll take like 2 or 3 blogs we wrote like 8 years ago, put them all into one big massive, like now you got like a 1,500 word blog, rewrite some things, change positions, you know, reshape it, and bam, now you've got this really, you know, nice, well-crafted blog that we worked on many years ago that we basically made more relevant and recent.
That's a great example of repurposing old content. JJ, this was great.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for kicking us off today.
Perfect. Have a great day, everybody. Make it successful and be healthy.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.